Good evening and welcome to our video podcast, Into the Darkness. Last night we all watched episode 6 of Lovecraft Country, and we're ready to discuss. Remember that there will be major spoilers in this episode. Comment at the bottom if you want to give us your opinion. Tonight our participants will be Josh Harwood, John Dos Passos, Mick Swan, Bayou Babe, Wayne Worthy, and John Hook. Okay, so if you guys don't know, we have little name tags at the bottoms of our screens, which you can't see. We changed them for our games, so Wayne's is different.
Wayne is still in character.
Yes.
Wayne's actually going to do this discussion in character as
he's
Hobo.
a method actor.
Bayou Babe.
Yeah, he's a method actor, so.
He's a method actor, exactly.
Bayou Babe's never seen a television. He's a hobo.
Bayou Babe has never slept indoors. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. I thought the acting in this episode was superb.
I agree. I agree.
I love this. I think this is one of my favorite episodes so far.
Okay.
I think we're all in agreement. They had the absolute worst episode followed by the absolute best episode.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. It's a good thing in a way.
Agreed. Yeah, I have some friends that have been watching, and I have one that's a big cosmic horror fan. So he and I, we always talk about the media we're watching. Like we were talking, we watched True Detective and shared all those thoughts. And he's been messaging me, and he was like, after the episode, I think it was 3, the one where they're all about the house and getting the house. He was like, he's like, it's really getting good now. And then after 4 and 5, he was like, some really good episodes this week. And I was like, And then this week he was like, a real great episode again. And I was like, all right, we're back to agreement, because this one I felt like I really liked the acting, like you said. I thought it was interesting that we spent I do like getting back to the characters, but I like that they focused in on this episode.
Right.
Yeah.
We did all Korea, all...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Jamie
it's weird because I thought it was just going to be a quick flashback.
Right.
And then, I'm watching it, and then I feel like I'm watching something totally different.
Exactly.
And then, you have this whole thing, this dynamic between this woman and her mother, and you're, trying to figure it out, and then her mother drops this thing, you should go out and bring men home. Not a man, but men home. And I was scratching my head. I was like, she's prostituting her daughter?
And it wasn't until she lit the candle and they all lit that I was going there's something weird going on.
Yeah, I love that. Because at first you think it's it's, you have to, bring honor to the family. And, of course, in the 50s in Korea, it was for, you had to bring a man home, right? And so at first you think it's that sort of cliched kind of thing. And then you're slowly like, wait a minute. Men, and then like you said, the candle. It was a great reveal.
What I liked was the build up to that point, because it was just everything you seen her sort of being a little wacky on a quick date thing, and she's trying to fit in at school and everything like that, and she's trying to do her the best that she can, and she finally meets this guy and she brings her home, and you're like, all right, I guess this is going to happen. And then you're right, she lights the one candle and all these other candles light up, and I'm like, okay, something is nice is about to happen right now. And it did, and I loved it.
I should also I also want to say that this episode has zero to do with the book,
right?
Other than the fact that the book says that Atticus is a vet of the Korean War, that just simply gave his character experience in combat and stuff. When that kind of stuff arises in the book, they've taken it and really, dove deep into that with the HBO series. So this entire episode is all from the HBO writers, all made up with zero other than characters. It had nothing to do with the book, but I thought it was the best episode so far. And this, I think, is an example on the kinds of episodes that they could have done, on the kinds of filling in between the lines where HBO, in my opinion, has really just missed the mark, where they could have taken the book, they could have plotted out 3 seasons, and with the book chunked up into thirds, they could have been very true to the book and still filled in between the lines things like this background stuff with Atticus in Korea. They could have done deeper background stuff with Letitia and her mother and that family. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they can do, and it would be all new material that could have dovetailed with book material, and they could have been really, really faithful to the book. But they haven't been faithful to the book, which at first was making me feel like, are they going to completely screw this up? And then you get an episode like this, and you're like, there is talent in that writer's room,
right?
Because the talent is clear on the actors. I mean, they're amazing, and they're only able to do with what they got in front of them, Right. And this was a great script. This was a great episode.
Well, I think that there were. It's funny because, you can isolate certain things like Uncle George and his wife in bed and scenes that are just phenomenal. I mean, they're like Oscar material stuff.
Right.
And this had a lot of that in it. But then occasionally they'll make something that feels like a producer choice. Like the producer said, throw more sex in there. Yeah, make Atticus a war criminal. And I'm like, what the fuck?
That was a little rough to watch, but
well,
I mean, that makes sense given Korea.
Yeah.
No, but see, it makes sense for Korea for someone else, not the main protagonist of our story. He could have been standing there and a sergeant could have ordered him to do it, and then he could have refused and the sergeant could have pulled the trigger, but we had the guy that we're supposed to like murder 2 women, completely innocent, without any emotional attachment to it. And it was like, now we're in Watchmen territory. He murdered 2 women.
He murdered one and tortured one.
No,
he
murdered one.
Murdered one, and he was present at the torture of the other.
I want to be. No. It was actually, there was another. That was another guy that shot the first one.
Was it another one?
It was, and he says private, and he calls up Atticus.
His
gun jams.
Oh,
yeah.
So I agree that it should have been a little more like that guy ordering him or them doing it, because it was just sort of like Atticus shoots them, and you're like, whoa.
However, if he would have gone that way, he would have been court-martialed.
Yeah,
he's a black man in the army at that time. People, there's still no
I'm not so sure
and stuff like that.
If he had said that I'd been ordered to murder somebody who was completely innocent and I refused, I don't think they would court-martial him. They'd investigate him.
Well, in the 50s, a black man in the 50s, they didn't want him in the army to begin with.
And in the Korean War, that was kind of messy anyway.
The problem is it still creates a situation in the show where now we can't love Atticus anymore.
Right.
I feel like
I think that's a weird choice.
Yeah, but I think even with that choice, it comes full circle towards the end of the episode where she encounters him on the base and tells him like, "Hey, I was about to kill you," and all this other stuff. And she throws all this stuff in his face, and she gets his natural reaction. And what she says to him is, "Why not? Let's not be the monsters, that we've been. Let's be the best thing that we see in each other," or something like that. I think that's what the message was supposed to. Yeah, I think
it was good writing. It was good writing, but
yeah.
Now, here's the thing that kind of throws me a little bit, because I'm trying to take this episode and put it into the larger puzzle of this series, and so my mind goes back to when Atticus was in Artem, and he was in the house, and there was that whole sequence where Atticus and Uncle George and Letitia were segregated into their rooms, and each of them were having a hallucination, and then the Sons of Adams, they were in those other rooms, and they were like basically voyeuring, watching through those magical portals, the three people, dealing with their hallucinations. And in Attic, I'm trying to, I don't know why I do this. I'm just torturing myself, but I'm trying to like assume that there are certain laws of physics to the way that this magic stuff is working. And so what I've come up with, and maybe I'm just flat out wrong, is that the spells that the Sons of Adams were using for the hallucinations, that it would draw upon thought patterns of the subject, pull those out, and then animate those thought patterns, and that's how they were hallucinating. So when Atticus is hallucinating his battle with, and I forget the woman's name now, but the woman from Korea, she comes in the hallucination. She came bursting out of the wardrobe as a communist. She was in communist garb and with dueling pistols, and they had a gunfight. And now that we've had this episode, while he might suspect that she was a communist, I mean, she even, admitted that, that one woman who was a confessed communist was her best friend, and maybe she was a sympathizer or something. But Atticus never encountered her, at least as far as we've seen, has never had an encounter with her, a confrontational encounter at that, where she was coming across as a communist. His encounter with her was mystical. She had tails coming out everywhere, and she could see the future from him, and it was just a weird event. So when the spell the Sons of Adams put on him for the hallucination, why wasn't she attacking him as some sort of tentacled creature? She came at him as a mundane communist.
Which I think
that had nothing to do with his experience.
Yeah, but I don't think it was his experience. I'm sorry.
I guess.
Yeah,
I guess it's kind of he couldn't process.
Yeah, I think his worst fears, and it wasn't the monster thing that was his worst fear. His worst fear was he fell in love with somebody who could have been a communist. Who could maybe he did some mental gymnastics to try to forget about that.
I'm not sure that he could completely remember it the way that it actually happened.
And maybe
that's true.
She and the Korean War and everything that happened while he was there are all mixed into one amorphous mess in his mind, and that's how it came out.
If you think about it too, the way the entire series started with him dreaming,
she was the Princess of Mars.
Doesn't she come down as the Princess of Mars? Yes. And weren't there tentacles also? And
I mean, Cthulhu was there.
It was all in his mind.
Yeah, but she had tentacles like around her.
That's right.
I would have to see that again.
So
I don't know. It bothered me now as I was watching this. I'm like, why did his hallucination have her as a communist?
Short answer is,
that's just me.
Short answer is that HBO didn't want to show you yet.
Well, to
be honest.
True.
I mean, I like that there. I feel like there is a like what Josh and Wayne were saying is that there is a reason. I feel like that he wouldn't have hallucinated that, but I think short answer is that they didn't want to show us yet.
What really confused me is the fact that the previous episode ends with Atticus deciphering something that says die. And then he calls her on the phone and says, how did you know? And of course, this one ends with her saying, don't go back or you're going to die.
Right.
And I'm like, but what does that have to do with him deciphering? The scroll made no sense.
It's because he's realized from that maybe it means he's figured out that he's meant to die at some point, and she said that he's going to die. It's a big stretch.
But does that mean that the scrolls that are talking about him in his current?
I am a little confused by that as well.
Allow me to read the future. And I look into the dark voids of the future, and I see all 6 of us dead in the future.
Yeah, right.
we're all
Exactly.
gonna
Which I thought that was a little interesting and a little honestly confusing.
Speak for yourself. I'm determined to get my immortal robot body at some point. So.
Right. Oh, that's true. Yeah, we're all gonna be robolicious. But
I'm just gonna transfer into another human.
That's that's even better idea.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think I like the this depiction of the Kamiho. However, it's a little odd that she says she steals their memories, but also she steals their future memories. It seems like they gave us like.
Well, no, that seems to be something that she was confused about as well, because that's, you know, that's where
that never happened.
The shaman at the end that never happened before, and
perhaps when she did it
because she'd broken the contact, or because he has again this bloodline.
I can explain a little
explored previously.
I can explain a little bit because I like the Kamiho, and there's a very small fraction of people who the tale goes in this direction that they can obviously see into the future. So when they are brought for a deal, because they're usually brought in for a revenge deal, but during that, men who they're about to take the souls of, there are some variation of a tale where they can make a deal where they take a fraction of the soul and a little bit extra for later, that they can make a deal to survive or to see their own future. So they can so she can show them their own future or tell them when they're going to die, how they're going to die. It's kind of a weird, it's a weird variation. And I think it's just, that means whoever did the historical, the research into the tale really dug deep to find that, because it is a very obscure side to it.
Interesting.
Well, it doesn't actually have to follow any real legend.
Sure.
It has just close, because a lot of Lovecraft stuff is close to the legend, but it's
they didn't do it like to the T, because they took a bit of leeway, but you're going to take creative leeway. But I really like the Kamiho legend. It's my favorite, like, nine-tailed fox legend, so I kind of like that. So I'm glad they've used it. And Jamie Chung, hands down the best.
Oh yeah, that was
great actors.
Like, probably in the entire series. And that's saying things, because Jonathan Majors is definitely.
I really like. I mean, just in terms of the production design and the way they did it with Tales. There was something about the look of those tales that stylistically reminded me a bit of I can't remember what it's called. Is it called Minyo, the traditional Korean folk art?
Yeah.
And it was kind of, it had that kind of sort of, you know, that wispy sort of hairy quality that you get with that stuff that's done with very fine brushes like that. So that was quite nice. And
it kind of had a spider-like.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Legs. Yeah.
It reminded me of Metamorphosis. Yeah,
like I literally, like I'm not scared of most of anything except for like spiders. And when that scene popped out, and I started to freak out a little bit. I kind of crawled up into my seat a little bit, and I was like, "Wait a minute, it's not spider legs; it's something else."
Yeah.
But I was just like, "Ooh."
I'll tell you something funny that I thought, though, is I was on the mom's side, because she is like, are you telling me that we have done this 99 times and I've had to clean up your mess, and now you're not going to go through with it?
Yeah.
Like, are you happy?
Yeah, I get it.
Years I've had to clean
understandable.
So Mick can back me up here, but they're messy. The tales are more violent. Like
yeah.
They are
like last week's complaints about the gore, like the actual Korean folk tales about the Kamiho are way worse.
Way worse.
Yeah, they're not at all restrained things.
Yeah,
I think last week it wasn't
very bloodthirsty.
Yeah, and I think last week what we were saying is it wasn't the amount of gore; it was just the same. It was just the same gore over and over again. So it got a little old. So it's like, yes, we get the skin all falls off and they come out. It's like, show us a little something different, and you know, they're like, we get it. It's gross.
Yeah, I did think the effect was kind of cool though. Now, what was really creeping me out was when the tails popped out of her eyes.
Yeah, that was great. And then it, like out of all of her and connecting to all of them, that's how that sucks the memories and soul out of it, kind of physically.
Where she was trying to stop them from going. She was trying to grab them and push them back into her.
And her mother was fantastically good at laundry.
Oh yeah,
I know.
She must have been.
Those bed sheets were spotless the next time.
And the walls.
She had to replace the
very
paper on the walls.
Yeah, but there's probably some sort of trick that elderly Korean women know to cleaning that stuff.
Sure.
Did you notice
from
that,
mother to daughter for generations?
Did you notice that there was a strong undercurrent of the idea of love in this one?
Yeah.
It was the mother's love for the daughter, the woman's love for her friend, for her love for Atticus.
Oh, there's a really I thought a really quite beautiful moment when she finds out that Atticus is a virgin, and it's like she's approaching the cusp of realizing that she's falling in love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she when she throws him out, it's like she's reached this moment where there's this new and wonderful thing in her life, this thing that she's always been told that she'll never experience, and she
right,
and because she's never experienced, she's not sure that she's experiencing it, and she just doesn't want to sully it.
Right.
And there's and that idea of that sort of that innocence existing between two people who are by this point deeply flawed and murderous, I thought was actually quite beautiful.
Yeah.
There's an
lovely moment.
Yeah, there's this little, almost a kind of like a postmodern or new age cosmic horror there, where sometimes you get into little bits of it where it's accidentally a little bit kind of thoughtful. Like it's like you see that, even creatures that aren't human, by our standards of what human is, can still feel things. And so it's like,
is love going to save the day?
Right. And then you're like, slaughter the deep ones, take out the choo-choo, take out the serpent people, take them all out, they're invading us. And you're like, wait a minute. If these things can have feelings like us, does that mean that we're bad for viewing them this way? And then it's sort of, some people don't like that because it gets you thinking. Like, it's like, wait a minute, who put this thoughtful stuff in my cosmic horror? But I kind of like it. It's a little odd,
There's
it's kind of like that movie that I think you suggested to me was the movie called Spring.
That's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there's an interesting moment if you ever read Anne Rice's the second in the vampire trilogy, Lestat the Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
When he becomes a vampire and he realizes that he can go into churches and that there's no effect on him at all, or he can touch crosses or whatever. And he makes this really interesting line. He says, is this what it's like? Do demons walk about in hell and say, oh, my friend, I'm so glad to see you. I love you so much. And it's like, are they just normal things in just a different world?
I think that was it was that Judy Garland interview that they played at the end.
That was really interesting.
That was a great bit of sound design.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's one of the few times I've heard like an interview used where traditionally just music would be playing.
Right.
And my goodness, that worked. I thought it was very successful.
Yeah, there's a couple times where they played a little bit of interesting audio, and I think sometimes there's times where I liked it, but other people didn't like it. But this time, I think it was rather good choice. I think.
I thought all of it was good choice tonight.
Yeah.
That was one of my things that I couldn't complain about this episode, and I loved the fact that I couldn't complain about it.
The music, we couldn't.
Yes, this is what I'm talking about.
Although Easter Bonnet is one of those songs that is an earworm for me. Like, in your Easter bonnet.
Now it's in your head.
In your Easter bonnet. What else? I don't know. It's funny because this is really the praise episode.
Yeah, because
I thought, given the whole episode is new and not related to anything in the book. I thought it was a wonderful nod to that, with the whole bit about the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes,
and her discussing the Count of Monte Cristo with him, and him saying, "Well, that was the film. The ending of the book is completely different to that." And that was a nice little touch. I like that.
It almost makes me think that they put that out there to go, that includes us. This film will be different than the book,
Right.
And even and there were just some lovely little bits of cinematography, like when she goes outside and her hands are covered in blood and she's standing
I love that
outside the building, and you've got that fantastic image where like you've got the rain is
pouring down
in a straight line about a foot in front of her, and she's standing there sheltered. And just half of the screen is rain, and half of the screen is the hospital and her, and this gap.
Yeah,
and it was just a
beautiful cinematography.
It was wonderful.
Really lovely.
And just the juxtaposition of like the fact that we've seen her literally covered in blood for murderous reasons, and then we see that on a daily basis she gets covered because she's helping people, like she's doing good things, and we've sort of caught her red-handed in a good way for once, which is odd compared to how we see the character the rest of the episode, or at parts and throughout the episode,
And I think in a way, I mean that makes it even more shocking when you've got that scene with Atticus and the other soldier just executing those women. But previously, those women have been shown saving the lives of American servicemen.
Yeah. Yes.
But because of this whole business, especially in the 50s, at the birth of the Cold War, and this is when we have Americans being at the beginning of this whole propaganda period and being trained to hate communism, which persists to this day. Mm-hmm. That immediately, as soon as the suggestion is made that one of them is a communist sympathizer, now they all become targets. They all become immediately dehumanized by that. And I suppose there's a parallel in that dehumanization and the fact that she isn't entirely human,
right,
as well. So I mean, I know it's quite a well-worn trope, but it was done very well. I thought that all right, yes, she is both less than human and in many ways more human than the humans.
Right, I like that a lot. I thought there was, towards the beginning of the episode, was there a little bit between her and, I apologize, I don't remember the other woman's name, the woman who was shot for being communist. Were they checking each other out a little bit?
It looked like that to me.
And then, because then when they're talking in the street after they hang the communist man, they're almost having this, they play the word game a little bit, where they're talking about how they're different, and how we're all human. And I think we're supposed to think that, she's talking about the communists, but is she talking about the communists, or is she talking about something else? Is she talking about more than one thing at once? I thought that was I have a lot of questions there.
I think that
because this was like a totally new thing to me, I thought that this woman was also like her.
I thought that too, possibly. But I think more to the point, they established the characters as people who had relationships with one another. You could believe that the girls in the hospital were all sort of friends, and they giggled together, and they went out to nightclubs, and they did things, and that made them very, in our minds, it made them very important. And then when the guy just pulls the trigger and shoots him in the head, we were outraged, we were horrified, even more so.
I think that discussion in the street is also setting up the premise that, despite what her mother has told her, she is capable of these feelings, because she obviously cares about her friend.
Yeah.
And she reaches out a hand in consolation, and
she shows humanity, despite not technically being a human, as her mom would put. But she has humanity.
And she's never really felt it before, so she's struggling with these new feelings. She's finding out about herself, and it again, it goes back to that feeling of love. It's kind of just this whole circle for her, like she's realizing who she can be, and she's not just a monster.
I also had to ask myself during the scene that you're talking about, whether gestures of affection are different in different countries, and I know they are. So her putting her hand on the other one or holding her hand might mean the same thing that we would think that it would mean.
Yeah, but
it was very kind.
But the shot did kind of linger, and her hand kind of slid off kind of slowly, which was suggesting something else. And when she says that, yeah, we're different, but we're still human. So I was like, okay, so she's not talking about them being the same sort of spot spirit thing. So I'm thinking that when she's saying that we're different, that there's an attraction between the two of them.
I mean, I thought that line was more that was introducing a whole element of difficulty into her character, wasn't it? Because they were bonding, and her friend was telling her that the difference doesn't matter. And then when she drops that clanger and says, you know, we're both human, and you know, that's thinking, well, yeah, you don't understand at all, do you?
And then her friend saves her life because Atticus had the gun to her head.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, I'm the one. And then we watched
also
Atticus torture her.
Yeah. I kind of like Tick's friend as well, the Korean guy. I know he wasn't really in it, but I did kind of just like how he just seemed like the tag-along third wheel.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like this show, but sometimes they just they're like, you know, they're trying to show a lot of different cultures and stories, which I like. But then sometimes they're just like, here's a character that went through a lot. Isn't that interesting? All right, next episode. Like,
I thought it was important though because they brought a thing because the guy said he was conscripted, whereas Atticus came
he was
freely.
Drafted, yeah.
Right.
And I think it's a fair thing that it's. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, is like, if he survived the war, I'm wondering if they're going to bring him into another episode.
Right.
Maybe.
I mean, I would like to see him because he has an interesting story that, unfortunately, he's like he said, he's a foreigner wherever he goes, which I think is rather sad, and I think a very important thing to think about. That is part of history. I mean, imagine going like that, going to a country that your family is from, or a continent your family's from, and then they treat you as a foreigner, and you fight for this country, go back to that country as a veteran, and they still treat you as a foreigner.
Right.
Well, I think there's a parallel in the relationship between the two leads as well, isn't there? With the fact that very much, on returning to America, Atticus is in a culture where he is in many ways viewed as essentially less than human. And she has also been told repeatedly that she is less than human, that she's lacking in some way, that there's something less about her because of this thing that was summoned into her. So I think that and the theme of redemption, and I think are two continuing themes in the thing. I'd like to see it explored a lot more. I mean, like you said before, this idea of the if you will, the humanity of the other, in the most extreme form of the monsters and things. That that these things are very, very much, especially the Cthulhu mythos, are often very two-dimensional constructs. That these things are just, cosmic evil. They're entirely evil. And as you say, there might be some very nice serpent people.
Yeah,
certainly. I think there's. I mean, just in terms of not just books, but in terms of gaming, I think very often there's been particularly some ghoul characters who were very,
and
very sympathetic characters.
I wrote a scenario with two serpent people who are very sympathetic.
Hell yeah, I like that. Yeah, and I mean, think about deep ones. I mean, some deep one hybrids did not even choose. Like they were just born as people, and then they they get called to the sea. Like, whoa, hey, I'm a person. Like, nope, you're not a person. You're a deep one. And it's like that person felt like they had humanity before they underwent their hybrid transformation. And so I think it's a little bit not fair to just be like, oh, deep ones are evil. They're cosmic evil. It's like that's not how that works at all.
Right.
I think, as I said, there are deep parallels between that and the experience of any people living through segregation as well. And
exactly.
Being told that, you're not entirely like us. You're different in some way. there's this idea of this constructed difference, this manufactured otherness, and that, I think, it's something that's very well worth exploring. I mean, I must say, I mean, when it comes to sort of exploring particularly racial themes in the Cthulhu mythos, I'd put Lovecraft Country as my second favorite book that does it. In that I like Lovecraft Country as a book, but I don't think it's as good as The Ballad of Black Tom, which I think personally was a much better book.
The Ballad of Black Tom. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, Ballad of Black Tom is it is good, and the writer's African American. I don't know if Ballad of Black Tom does as much confrontation with racial issues more than the fact that
I think more that it's more in its certainly not in the broader context, but in the sense of quite directly confronting the racism of Lovecraft's work.
Yes,
it's more effective of doing that. But then with Lovecraft Country, obviously, it's not actually Cthulhu mythos as such, and it's Lovecraft's fiction is a mechanism to explore other themes within the book, whereas Ballad of Black Tom is essentially a retelling of horror at Red Hook.
But it's certainly much more entertaining version of it. Ballad of Black Tom is so good. So I agree. I can't recommend it highly enough. So it's a good one. The flashback episode was primarily in 1950. As I sit here, I can't recall when are the events that are taking place in the current timeline. 55?
Yeah, I think it's a couple years difference.
So 52, 53?
Or I'm actually not entirely sure.
I'm not sure either.
It's between there and 55, I think.
Josh
Yeah,
Hang on,
Josh
I'm just
is
checking.
I think
Josh
it
is
was
slinging
55 or 58 or something.
Google Foo right now.
Oh wow! It just says 1950s on what I'm looking at.
1950s.
Right now,
Okay.
We'll
So
have to look at some of the dates, but yeah.
so the episode ends because it wasn't just a pure flashback. The episode ends with the woman,
The shaman.
the foxtail woman. The mother takes her to see the shaman, and it feels like she was given a quest. So I feel like we're gonna see her show up in the current timeline story. I feel like she's gonna go to Chicago, and now we're gonna see her. But I'm trying to figure out. I mean, because they've already been diverging from the book quite a bit. This will be yet another even bigger change.
Which comes to a fact that they are thinking of making a second season.
Right.
That is in the pipeline. Also, I did just see 1944 and 1945. Apparently, it's set between those 2 years. This series.
The flashback?
No, the present timeline. Apparently.
Oh, I thought you said 44.
54.
You meant
54.
Yeah.
54, 55. Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you were right. Around
right.
55.
So, if she comes in and that becomes season 2, that's awesome. But right now, I'm having a hard time seeing past the end of season 1.
Yeah. Where's this going?
Yeah. How is she? Well. Because if this is going to be a character that's pivotal for season 2, this feels too early. I don't know. For me, it feels too early to introduce her.
Maybe she shows up and evens the odds for Atticus and his family.
Maybe, yeah.
Because they're going up against wizards, so
yeah, they are.
Why
quite
not
powerful. They are quite powerful. So.
Yeah, why not have a yokai or something?
Yeah, but are they going up against? They're just Atticus says he's just trying to find a way to protect his family.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to have any intention on attacking or going after.
Right.
And they've already established that these family wizards, these long lineage family clans, that they at best have one spell. They know one thing. So maybe Atticus can get his one spell, and it can be enough to for them to do something. I don't know. I'm having a hard time seeing where they're going to be taking this to its conclusion.
Yeah, I can see what.
Well, they have already found, haven't they, that that there are people they can turn to who do have some expertise that seems to work, because the woman with the goat, the Uganda that they got in with the goat, that worked. That stopped her from coming in the house.
It did. It did. That was new. That was not in the book.
Yeah.
What do we think too about the creatures that Christina Brainwaith was helping to birth?
Yeah, well, those got kind of left behind, and I'm interested to see where those are going.
I think it will get explained.
I hope that those come back, because it was kind of just like, whoa.
Because not to, I mean, I say not to spoil the book, but to spoil the book, we don't return to them in the book either.
Right.
Huh. That is very strange. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I used to train these monsters when I was a kid. Well, anyway,
it was more than that. She almost treated it like it was her baby.
Yeah,
she was holding it, and everybody was like, "Oh."
It could be the show's way of showing you that there's some crazy shit about to happen here. Like, you're going to see more crazier things than this, which technically we have.
It could all be little tentacles in the story that they'll exploit for the next season and the season after that.
And you guys were talking about this earlier, but the way I'm looking at it, HBO probably went about this as sort of a test thing. Like, it's a good book, it may be a good show, but we're gonna at least just do one season. If it's really good and everybody likes it, we might extend it to something else, like add more onto it, So that's probably the reason why we're getting this version. Like, a lot of it's choppy and sped up and everything like that. So
might also be possible that the writers are better than we think they are, and that they've created an undercurrent that will build and give us a really phenomenal finale that we'll want to see another season. I don't know how they'll do it, but this was a really good episode.
I think it's been interesting, in especially in the sense that it now puts everything else in a slightly different light, in that we now know that Atticus was going into this with the first-hand knowledge that this kind of weird magical shit does actually exist.
Right.
Yeah.
That he's already had an experience when he was in Korea.
Which, now that I think about it, does actually explain a little bit of his open-mindedness in those first two episodes compared to George and Letty. He was a little more, all right, let's see what the sorcerers have to say, guys. And it's like, whoa, so that makes a little more sense. I hope so too, Tom, what you said. And we were talking about it a little bit earlier, and we were talking about some last week about how there's a lot of this feels like, different, like playing different scenarios in one campaign or whatever. And I feel like, we talked about how it was a double-edged sword, and I feel like this is one of the episodes where it was very positive. Like, it was very good that we took a whole different, we turned and we focused on something different, and the style was a little different, and it was really good. And so it's proven that they have the merit to do this. So I hope that we get more of this and not more of the stylistic change for the negative that we talked about.
I mean, that's quite in keeping with the book as well. I mean, the book is a series of vignettes.
Right, right. And so I hope that they continue that in a more positive manner like they did with this episode, so I've got high hopes. I hope they keep it up.
Yeah. Anything else?
I want to do a rating for this one?
I'd give this almost a 9 or a 10. It was acting.
I would give it a 9.
I can't remember if I gave episode 1... It was either like an 8 or a 9, but I think this one definitely is as good or better. So I'll give this one a 9.
Yeah, I'd see this one as being tops. I'll say 10.
Wow.
I can't imagine doing something even better than this. This was a great episode.
It was.
If they can top it.
I'll give it a 9 just in case they really blow me away later.
Yeah.
I will just point out so the episode was. This is my one more thing I'm doing.
Yes.
So it's This episode was directed by Helen Shaver, and it was and the screenplay was written by Misha Green, which all of them have been, with Korean American writer Kevin Lau. So it was written by someone who.
I'll have to look into that. I like to. We'll have to see. I like his work. In addition to Misha's, as always. So.
So yeah,
For those who are watching, yes, we are critical of this show sometimes, but it's because we like it. We like parts of it, so we want the parts that aren't as good to be better. That's why we're critical.
True.
I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far.
Yeah, same. This episode, because last week it was a bit. I enjoyed it, but it was a bit of a downer. But this week kind of lifted me back up.
Yeah.
I can't even say that I enjoyed last episode. This one brought faith that they can do well in the series. So
who doesn't like Korean culture? And they go.
Exactly. All right. For those of you who don't know who we are Into the Darkness. We consist of a large group of friends from around the world that play a game called Call of Cthulhu RPG. We play Tuesdays through Fridays, a couple of hours a night, and we post these videos on YouTube. We also have a Discord server where you can chat with us directly. We're currently producing up to 4 shows a week with music and sound effects added in post-production in order to create a richer listener experience. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Podbean or iTunes. The costs involved with the show are provided almost entirely by our patrons. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. If you'd like to help support our show, please visit our Patreon account. Just $1 to a month helps us a lot. You can find a link in the description below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel and punch the bell icon for updates on our latest shows. And leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck, good gaming.